Ramzan Kadyrov has claimed that the children of divorced parents are not normal. Credits a Barakov TASS. Almost 1,000 separated couples in Chechnya have been pressured to reunite after strongman leader Ramzan Kadyrov declared that divorce lay at the root of the republic's social problems. Chechen state television announced this week that 948 families have been reunited by a special commissions of government, law enforcement and religious officials, which some residents have said pressure people to live together even in adverse circumstances. A mostly Muslim republic in Russia's Caucasus Mountains, Chechnya has grown increasingly conservative and authoritarian under Mr. Kadyrov, who was recently reappointed by Vladimir Putin and is seen to have impunity as long as he suppresses the region's Islamic insurgency. The campaign began after Mr. Kadyrov said in July that children who don't live with both parents are more vulnerable to extremists. Mr. Kadyrov's crackdown on human rights has intensified in recent months. Credit EPA. He claimed that most of the young men who had committed crimes in Chechnya in recent years grew up in incomplete families and argued that out of 100 of those families, at the most 5 or 6 are normal. Our first task is to return women who left their husbands, reconcile them, Mr. Kadyrov said. Rasul Uspanov, head of one of the commissions, the Grozny headquarters for the harmonization of marital and family relations, said it finds out about separations and divorces through a confidential hotline and calls the couples into its office to speak with a mullah, BBC Russian service reported. Here in Chechnya there are no human rights violations and there can't be any. Chechnya administration spokesman Rustam Abbazov. Often it brings parents in to tell their daughter that if it was a domestic quarrel, you need to remarry your former husband, he said. According to Mr. Uspanov, some wives have returned to a husband who remarried and become his second wife, since under Islam a man has the right to marry 4 times. Rustam Abbazov, head of Department for Communications with Religious and Public Organizations in the administration, denied that anyone had been reunited by force since here in Chechnya there are no human rights violations and there can't be any. But several residents have told Russian publications that couples are often coerced into getting back together. Clearly there's nothing to do but agree when they pressure you from all sides. Grozny resident Zarema. If you refuse them you're going against not just religious institutions and traditions, but also against Mr. Kadyrov's wishes. It's this form of pressure, a woman in Grozny named Zarema told the independent news site Caucasian Not. Clearly there's nothing to do but agree when they pressure you from all sides. Mr. Kadyrov and his security forces have been accused of human rights violations including forced disappearances, torture and extrajudicial killings. Beginning in February, officials rounded up hundreds of gay men and tortured and humiliated them in secret detention centers. According to reports by the independent Novaya Gazeta and Human Rights Watch, at least 6 men died as a result of the anti-gay campaign. On Wednesday, Amnesty International sent a letter calling on Yuri Chaika, Russia's prosecutor general, to investigate the situation in the village of Krasnaya Turbina in Chechnya. In a rare case of public dissent, 162 residents of the village signed a petition earlier this month asking Mr. Chaika to look into the cases of 2 local men who were detained in January and, according to the lawyer, tortured into confessing that they had planned to join Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant ISIL in Syria. Following the petition, police raided villagers' houses, detained many of them and forced 70 of them to sign a letter apologizing for their actions. It has become a common practice in Chechnya for people who complain or express dissenting views to be forced to apologize and repent publicly, a copy of the amnesty letter provided to the Daily Telegraph said. Such actions have become an integral part of the thriving climate of impunity in the republic.